Well, this morning, our speaker is a longtime member of our community and someone who really lives into that place of the I amness. Janice Butler has been part of our prayer team for several years. She's just completing this year. But she brings a heart and a soul to everything that she does. When she's not here at Unity, which, occasionally people have life outside of us, she has her master's in counseling and has a private practice. And she sees people that want to live life a little more fully and are working through the issues and things that are stopping them from being all that they can be. She has a great passion for theater. She does all kinds of productions with the seniors down in southern Alberta to bring that life force up and through. And on September 14th, she has a new project that she just piloted last year called Brave Souls. And if you'd like more information about that, Janice will be by the back of the bookstore. But it is an all-day event where people come and share their experiences about what it takes to live bravely. And there's stories about being a brave soul. And we have a couple of people from our community speaking at that. Pearl Grams will be speaking at it, as well as Marge Snell, who is always our greeter at the front door, is doing her comedy routine. And she is 92. So if you want to see some of the most inspiring comedy you've ever seen, you should be there for that. This morning, Janice is going to be sharing with us about diving deep into the divine presence. Please welcome Janice Butler.
I did a women's conference a couple of years ago in Claresholm, and I was the presenter for the whole day, and their facilities were a little less than ideal. And so I had this microphone, and people wanted the lights very dim. So I had my husband bring his construction light, so there'd be some light on the speakers. And in the process of that, the microphone shaped like a penis on my face. So everybody was informing me about the lovely shadows on my face. Is that what you're up to, Anthony? Yes, keeping me humble, right? Keeping me humble. I just want to soak in all your divine presence for a moment. This has been a really challenging topic for me to ground myself in, which sounds so strange because I truly believe it's my sacred contract. If you've done Carolyn Mace's archetypal work, I really believe it's my sacred contract to be divine presence and to also support others in finding their divine presence. So when the topic came, I thought, duh, that's just, me. But expressing that became the challenge. Because as soon as we express it, we have to use our ego mind to understand, and that's full of dichotomy and this and that and right and wrong, and it's a concept that's beyond that. It's that field that Rumi talks about, beyond right and wrong. Ever since I was a child, I've looked at people and seen only their divine presence. And I wasn't going to say that because this little voice says, that's so prideful. But it is my truth. It is what's true. And other people would say, but they're this and this and this. And I would look and say, oh, yeah. But it wasn't what I first saw when I looked at people. And so for me to love people has not been a challenge. It's been easy, because when I look at you, it's what I see. And when you look at you, that's what I want you to see. And I think that's why this topic was so elusive in a sense for me, because for whatever reason, it feels so natural. And the truth is, it's natural for all of us. It's natural for all of us. If we can allow that childlike innocence to come forward, it's natural for all of us to look upon one another and see the truth of what's really there. I thought about the word presence, and I thought I'd take you on a little journey of my mind and how it makes sense of it. So when I was a child, growing up in a poverty-ridden home, I received lots of presents, which might not make sense, but research shows that the poorest families buy the most Christmas presents of anyone on the planet. And that's a sense of trying to make up for, I think. So the presence of people was not something that I experienced. My mother was a loving soul, but she worked a tremendous amount. And my father was soaking in his bottle. But at Christmas and birthdays, I got presents, a lot. They were outside of myself. They were a validation that someone loved me, someone cared for me, and they were a symbol of my worth. And I really counted on them. As a teenager, I started acting. And in acting, you get a whole nother dimension of presence, stage presence. Presence of an actor either makes or breaks them. And I understood this, and at times I would feel so connected, I would now say connected to source. At that age, something would happen. I'd feel this deep connection when I'd be on stage. My whole body would become enlivened. I would do things that I wouldn't dream of doing anywhere else. And I felt so connected to the audience and to myself. But it wasn't consistent. So sometimes I'd step out and I would feel it, and it felt powerful and wonderful. And sometimes I would step out on stage, and I could not, for the life of me, summons it. And so then I would feel deflated, flat, boring, disconnected from myself and from the audience. And it was always so disappointing. But I did a performance, and that's where I could go. It was so disappointing. And then I became a counselor. And the word presence takes on a whole new meaning, another dimension of this word. Because in counseling, you're trained to hold presence for people. And I thought, this is the perfect occupation for me. It's the most natural thing in the world. And so I learned how to be that presence as people came with all manner of suffering, all manner of horrible beliefs about themselves and others. And I, really and truly, all the training and all the years of university were no match for the ability to hold presence. And for me, I would just say, I just love them. That's what I'm there to do. I had a client come once, and he had tremendous anxiety. He was in his 50s, and he'd had it for many, many years. And he was a very scholarly man. And he's told me he had studied every kind of religious philosophy, looking for something to help with this anxiety. And when he came to my office and we spent time together, after a few times he said to me, I finally have found what all these religious philosophies have been alluding to that I could never grasp. And he says, I find it here, in this counseling office. And I said to him, that's just the presence of love. I once had a client phone and say, do you bring God into your counseling office with you? And I said, I don't think I can keep him out. He's here in me and in you. Yes. You know, oh, I got to tell you my Rumi quote. I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and I found only God. I think I do that every talk because it's just the truth of what I live by. And also every talk, I'm like Patty, she said she's a one-trick pony. Me too. I always talk about Myrtle Fillmore, and it's like she comes to me as like saying, remind them about me. Because Myrtle was, as you know, one of the founders of Unity, and she was diagnosed with tuberculosis at a very young age. And a lot of her family had been diagnosed with that and died. So the medical prospects for her physical being were not good. And Myrtle listened to something inside of her that said, maybe there's a different way. And through prayer, meditation, sending healing love to her own body, she lived to be 86 years old. And she started this, her and her husband started this whole movement. And I just want to hear, this is the first time I read this phrase from her. No matter what has been done to us, so no matter what has been done to us, we have the perfect pattern of God within us. Breathe that one in. No matter what has been done to us, we have the perfect pattern of God within us. Greg Braden, in his book, The God Code, actually, because he's a scientist, he shared, and I heard him speak here in Calgary, that if you look at your DNA under a microscope, in every layer of every strand of DNA in our body is an Arabic code, a symbol that means God. If you put your hand in your heart and say, every cell in my body is stamped God. Some of you probably heard of Joe Dispenza, who wrote, I think it's called You're the Placebo or I'm the Placebo. I heard him speak a few years back too. And he was a chiropractor who was doing a triathlon and had this terrible accident where this person hit him from behind, catapulted him yards in the air, and then dragged him for a little ways. And his whole vertebrae was just shattered. And so in the hospital, of course, they wanted to perform some surgery that I can't remember the name of. And because he had so much knowledge and wisdom about his body, he knew that that would likely end in paralysis. So, but no one ever refused that surgery. And the doctors said that to him. No one refuses this surgery. And he said, he had the thought, the same God that created this body can heal this body. And so that's what he did. Much like Myrtle, he set about spending time with his body. And because the advantage of being a chiropractor, understanding his nervous system and spinal column and all the nerves, he was able to knit together and imagine the healing process in his body. 3 months later, he walked out of that hospital, a well and able man. And when I saw him on stage, he was hopping around like a kid. Wayne Dyer, I want to read you this quote. This is what he says. Every day he would put all of his conscious attention onto the intelligence within him, and he would give it a plan, a template, a vision, and then he would surrender. I would then surrender my healing to the greater mind that has unlimited power. So remember surrender. And then I would allow. Really significant words. I would surrender to this healing power, and I would allow it to do the healing for me. And I would not let any thought slip by my awareness that I did not want to experience. Jackie Woodside, who came here and did our Canada Unity Conference, said that our one purpose here is to become our God selves. Wayne Dyer said, your purpose is to understand God realization. And Charles Fillmore, Myrtle's husband, stole this from Susan's talk a couple weeks ago. What is the chief objective of mankind? To glorify God in the body. These days, now that I'm nearly 60 and croning, I have a new perspective of presence. And it's grown from all these other perspectives that I had. I think it's closer to Charles Fillmore's perception. It's not about separating our body from spirit. A lot of people have this misconception that the more spiritual you are, the less physical and bodily you are. But how's that expression go, that you're so too spiritual to be of any human good? Right? This body is the temple of God. It contains you. And embodying the divine presence is truly what we're all here for. The work I've done with Juliet Haynes, some of you know about her from South Africa, the masculine feminine, she talks about the masculine, which is pure God consciousness, penetrating the feminine, which is the physical, earthly body. And when those two come together in the heart, pure joy, pure love, pure bliss. It's not about denying one or the other. It's about embodying through our body, the word body is in there for a purpose, right? That divine presence. In my experience, staying open to everything is really the best way to get to divine presence. So if I'm having an experience, like someone says something and I take it personal, I go into my ego mind of anger, blame, get out of here, I don't want to be with them. And in that same moment, if I can embody what's happening, I hear the thoughts, I feel the churning in my stomach usually, or sometimes my chest. Some people tell me their legs, they get this fight or flight response. So I'm conscious, here's the words, creating this bodily response. And then I ask for the divine presence to clear up my thinking and help me remember the truth. But I hold it all with love. An infant, and if you've been to my archetype workshops, you've heard this, but pure presence, when you're a newborn, you're pure consciousness. You're pure love. You have no judgments. They'll hold a handful of jello and a handful of caca with the same excited, exploration, like trance. They'll taste them both, they'll smear them both, and they love it. They don't have anyone to blame or a story that they've made up about one or the other being better. That's our pure innocence, that's a pure state of consciousness. And if we can do that, we're going to be as close to that divine presence as possible. So for me, I try to keep my heart open. And it's like I said, I hear the thoughts, feel the body, think, oh, God, come down, Mother Earth, come up, and I breathe in, holding my humanity with compassion. It's not about getting rid of humanity. This body temple in our experience is a gift because it helps us to understand the dichotomy, helps us to understand. If we're just pure loving presence, we understand it to a point, but you got to taste the sour to enjoy the sweet, all those things, right? The other place for me that have truly found divine presence is in the presence of death. And I've had the beautiful experience as a young woman working in a nursing home and being with many people as they passed. And then I got to be with my father, my mother, my best friend. And I have to say that in those moments, when one is passing between this plane and the next, are the truest, for me, times that I could feel divine presence. And I think it's a metaphor for each of us, because at that time, when they're dying, nothing matters except that person. I'm in the room with them. I'm not thinking about cooking dinner or who's right or who's wrong. I'm thinking about loving this person. And in that moment, everything else is just pushed outward. And I think in our lives, if we can embrace and let go of that ego-driven mind and move into our spirit-driven mind, in a sense, it's a way of letting things die in us, beliefs that we're hanging on to with death grips. And that symbology comes forward of allowing the true presence of who you are to shine. Tara Brach says it beautifully. In the present, or in the groundless openness of sorrow, there is a wholeness of presence and a deep natural wisdom. You know, life takes us all on a merry-go-round. And some days, just like when I was a teenager, I feel so enlivened by spirit, connected in everything I do. And other days, my humanity wins, and I feel flat, uninspired, not enlivened, disconnected. For me, the more I can lean in those times and breathe in and just feel. So this is what disconnection feels like. And call in what is true about each of us. Call in the divine spirit that lives within us. My whole being expands. I'm connected again. It's like I turn the lights on and off in my being. And the more I can, and this is what's hard, or challenging for most of us, the deeper I can feel my humanity, the deeper I'm going to feel divine presence. Did you understand that? Want me to say it again?
Yes.
The deeper I can go in and feel my sorrow, my fear, my anger, my hatred, my bitterness, my jealousy, my insecurity, the deeper I can go to feel the truth of who I am. So don't be afraid of all that you are. Don't be afraid of that. It really can't hurt you, because always and ever present, the divine has got you. And I guess if there's one thing I really want to tell you, is that the divine has always got you, and you are never alone.